Well, surprise, surprise, more violence in Portland. You didn't expect it, did you? It's a big shock, isn't it? Well, we have another person dead after there's a clash between Trump supporters and protesters. If you all did not know, recently in Portland, over the weekend, there was a Trump caravan, is what they're calling it. But basically a bunch of vehicles, Jeeps, trucks, cars, motorcycles with Trump flags, American flags, that drove into Portland showing their support for Trump. And over one of the nights, a man affiliated with a right-wing group was shot and killed on Saturday as a large group of supporters of President Trump traveled through. Okay. So a video that purports to be the shooting taken from the far side of the street showed a small group of people in the road outside of what appears to be a parking garage. Gunfire erupts and a man collapses on the street. The man who was shot and killed was wearing a hat with the insignia of Patriot Prayer, a far-right group based in the Portland area that has clashed with protesters in the past. Joey Gibson, the head of the group, said Sunday that he could not share many details, but could confirm the man was a good friend and supporter of Patriot Prayer. Okay, something they did leave out in this video, and I'm not going to show you the video, get in trouble for showing it because it's violent, right? So in the video, you can hear someone screaming that we got a Trump supporter here, or I can't remember the exact words, but it's something to the effect of, here is a Trump supporter. They are calling him out. We've got him right here, drawing attention to him, basically saying, hey, look, a Trump supporter. Now, because of where the phone is pointed and the camera is pointed, you can't see if they're talking about the guy who was shot. But just so you know how the event plays out, that is being yelled that there is a Trump supporter, and then a few seconds after that, you hear 2 gunshots, and they turn, and a guy's laying dead in the street. So you can put it together as best you want there, but that's what happened. Thought that was important to have in there because that's pretty much what you hear from the video leading up to the shooting. The Portland Police Bureau said that officers heard reports of gunfire shortly before 9 p.m. and found the victim with a gunshot wound to the chest. It was determined the victim had died. They did not release information about a possible gunman. More on that is coming out right now. There's a lot of rumors as to who the shooter was, and people are posting pictures, but we don't want to get someone in trouble and slander their name if they didn't do it. So the violence is completely unacceptable. We are working diligently to find and apprehend the individual or individuals responsible. Mr. Trump reiterated his call that the National Guard should be brought to Portland, saying people want law and order. They want safety and security and do not want to defund the police. Chad Wolf, the acting secretary at the U.S. Department of Homeland Security, said on the program this week that all options were on the table in determining how the federal government might respond to the events in Portland. So, again, they talk about all the violence and unrest that has been going on. Here is a picture of the people driving through Portland with they have the thin blue line flags, Blue Lives Matter. They have some All Lives Matter flags, I believe, American flags, and Keep America Great pro-Trump flags. That's the big group, people riding in the back of the trucks and stuff. So, down here, this was a whole thread on the violence that was going on and the conflict. So in this video here, you have basically protesters on the side of the street watching the Trump caravan go through. And in the back of the truck, you had Trump supporters with paintball guns and some mace and some other things. And then on the side of the street, you had, from what I could tell, anti-Trump people that had projectiles and, weapons. And same stuff they always have. And in the video, you see things flying back and forth. You see things being thrown from the protesters on the street, and you see things being fired and thrown from people in the trucks and the caravan. And the way each group is painting this is that the other group is bad and in the wrong. So when I saw coverage of this, it was that Trump supporters were driving through the area shooting protesters with paintballs and macing them. Oh, how awful these Trump supporters must be. And then, of course, people say in response to this, well, the people on the street were throwing Molotov cocktails and pieces of rocks or concrete, or throwing, someone said even like jars of urine, and people swarming the cars of the Trump caravan trying to, attack the protesters. You get bits of both, it seems like. And each group tries to completely justify their group and say that the other was entirely in the wrong. What is the truth in this scenario? What is really happening here? Is one group completely in the wrong? I don't know. In the video, you just see stuff being flung back and forth. You don't see who started it, right? So, scenario one, if the Trump caravan was coming through town and these rioting people on the streets started attacking and assaulting the people in the vehicles by throwing things at them or swarming the car, whatever it may be, then the people in the vehicles would be justified to try to defend themselves. And at least they're using, a non-lethal force, paintballs and mace to kind of push people back. Scenario two, the Trump caravan's coming through town and they see people yelling on the side of the street. As annoying, I mean, that's annoying as hell, but that doesn't mean you can just shoot them and mace them. So if they did that without the protesters attacking them, then the Trump supporters in the caravan would be in the wrong, right? So it really depends on, each scenario, and it could even vary from vehicle to vehicle, right? Maybe the first 10 trucks, didn't start anything and were just responding. But then the people in the back of the caravan were coming through and stirred some crap up. I don't know. You'd have to have so much video evidence and documentation from this. Painting groups with such a large brush like this is very difficult. What we do know, however, is that they were fighting with each other and there was conflict. And it's just this, my complaint is that a lot of these sides, both sides seem to always want to justify what they're doing in the scenario. And it is also probably true that one side is in the wrong more than the other. That still doesn't justify you to go be in the wrong because you're the one that is in the wrong less. So we'll move on here. I wanted to give an update on Kyle Rittenhouse and the shooting surrounding him. Now, if you know, we did a video on this a few days ago when it happened and tried to piece together what happened in the video footage. And for the most part was accurate, but a few things were off, and posted updates on that. But this is his legal team's defense here. I'll read that first and compare it to what we actually talk about. So the legal team representing Kyle Rittenhouse, the 17-year-old charged with intentional homicide and reckless homicide in the fatal shootings of 2 people during the protests Tuesday in Kenosha, says he was defending himself from a mob of attackers. The release says that the shootings that Rittenhouse was accosted, threatened, and verbally threatened and taunted by rioters, and this is while he was guarding a mechanic shop. The release says rioters at one point started chasing Rittenhouse, and he was being chased when he heard a gunshot behind him. The release says he turned and was faced with an attacker lunging toward him and reaching for his rifle. So we'll stop right here for a second. This is the first shooting. Now, the first shooting was separate from the second shooting. One guy was killed in the first one. The second shooting, we had a guy injured and a guy killed. So in the first shooting, we initially said in the video we couldn't really see because it was far across the street. And it looked like someone was chasing him and he was being attacked and that he shot in self-defense, but you couldn't really tell. And this is the story they have as well. So we'll see what they come up with with regards to, what he basically is convicted of here. And the second one is a lot more clear. It's in response to the first shooting. People say that he shot someone and he was running down the street, and they cover it all here. They claim he was being chased by a mob. They kicked him and bashed him with a skateboard, and that he was defending himself against the people trying to kill him there. We do know from the video that one guy did have a handgun and was pulling it out to, I don't know, aim it at him or shoot him at him. Either way, he's pointing a gun at Kyle. And the other guy was, jumping on him. So the argument there is basically self-defense. And that is what we have from his legal team. And that is pretty much what the video shows. Now, granted, a lot of people are going to be like, yeah, well, he shouldn't have had a gun. Right. 17-year-old, he wasn't, legally allowed to be out there, defending a business with a gun. But also, too, he wasn't here again, the initial news stories, a white supremacist crosses state lines with gun to come down and hunt protesters or play vigilante and shoot protesters. Let's be clear. That is also not what happened. He was in the area, and he was with some people that were trying to defend businesses from being completely burned down, because we have seen that in the same area. and also to help, I believe, administer medical aid from the other reports we have. So, if you've granted, yes, maybe wasn't supposed to have that gun, and you can deal with that, the legal ramifications of that in and of itself. That is one thing to deal with. But you also have to consider that, you don't have police protecting the businesses he was there defending. You don't have protection of those things. Someone has to stand up and do it, right? And also, too, you can't expect him, just because he's not supposed to have a gun, you can't expect him to let people just come in and potentially kill him because he's being assaulted and being attacked. What's the expectation there? Because he's not supposed to have a gun, he's not supposed to defend himself, and just let him walk all over him? No. So, again, there's a strong argument for his self-defense there. But throwing that story in, so we have, like I said, I wanted to cover the stuff in Portland with the guy that was just killed, and cover the thing with Kyle Rittenhouse. We also have more information coming out with regards to Jacob Blake. And, at first, the story was that the cop just shot him in the back when he was trying to get in the car. The same old narrative that, cops are corrupt and they're racist. Same old. More information comes out. There was a similar instance where this guy was pulled over before, went for a gun in his vehicle, but the canine took him down. This time it wasn't a gun. Turns out it was a knife. And also they were there because of there was a warrant. There was also a warrant out for him for sexual assault, and he was, there were issues with him and this woman there. It wasn't just he was some peaceful guy breaking up a fight. A lot more factors came into play, right? That makes you look at the situation and go, wow, that's different than what we were being told at the very beginning. Same thing with Kyle Rittenhouse. Wow, that's different than what we were being told at the beginning. And the stuff in Portland, it could come out with this guy that got shot, that it's different than what we initially saw at the beginning. And another one, just to add one more to the list. You have the guy in Minneapolis who was, I believe, wanted for murder, or was a murder suspect. And the police approached him. He was kind of up against a building next to a crowd of people, and he pulls out a gun and shoots himself in the head. What do people do? Do they find out if the story is, accurate and true? No, they don't actually look into what actually happened. They just know that police were there and the guy died by a gunshot. So what do? They start rioting and looting, claiming that police just killed another innocent black man. No concern for truth there. Another story. You just had, if you watched my most recent video, you had Rand Paul. He was being harassed and seemed to be like they were attempting to assault him. And instead, it happened to an officer that was protecting him. And people, shouting that he say Breonna Taylor's name and that he do something about the Breonna Taylor situation and police reform in his state. Well, did they bother to do any research into what Rand Paul has pushed for and done with police reform in the area? No, turns out he's actually taking a lot of steps to help fix the problems that led to her death. But do they care? Do they have any knowledge on the subject? No. Just angry, emotional responses. Look at all these stories. This has been happening for the past however many months, and even beyond that with ones we had before this. It's something happens, the news media jumps on it so fast with very strong opinions right from the get-go. And it's okay to form opinions on things as they come out, but to hold such a firm stance and a strong opinion on something that isn't supported by even some of the facts, like it's crazy how far these speculations go on these things right off the bat, and then people see that and they make their judgments off of what they see being told to them, and all of a sudden you have this mob of people that feel super, super strong about something in their core, that they are led to violence and destruction in the streets. And my wife and I recently started watching this HBO show. It was based off like one of the Stephen King books. I think it's called The Outsider, and uh, I was like, this one part. I was like, this is so true. So essentially, with the story, there's this thing going on where a kid is found dead in the woods, and they think they have this suspect, and they have all this evidence that really points to him doing it. But then there's also strong evidence on the other side that looks like it completely exonerates him, and the investigation hasn't gone very far in. It's only been a short amount of time, but one side feels so strongly that he is guilty, the other feels so strongly that he is innocent, that people buckle down on each side. And there's like one or two people in the middle who are like, hold on, we have these contradicting facts. We need to really figure out what happened before we, fully decide what we're going to do here. But people aren't having it. And then you get this scene where, and I'm not going to leave any spoilers here, but you get this scene where you have people, they're walking to the courthouse, and there's people on each side of the walkway there with the guy who's being accused walking down the middle. And they are just so emotionally invested, with some people thinking he is a guilty, child killer, sicko, it's the most disgusting thing they've ever seen, and people on the other side yelling that he is innocent, let him go, he's done nothing wrong. And all these people, the part that just struck me was that all these people that really don't have that much information about what's going on, all they know are the details they've been given from different reports, have full on emotionally invested so much in this that they are taking the time out of their day to go there and yell their opinions and just either berate or try to exonerate this guy based on the little information they know, without doing any investigation whatsoever, and just shortly after the events happen. And I'm like, that is what we are seeing with every controversial thing that comes into the news right now. Every killing, every riot, every violent act that is committed, you have people look and see what their side is saying happened, and they're like, all right, that's what happened, let's go. And then arguments ensue, right? And that prevents real productive discussions from happening, and that prevents people from coming to good solutions. Because then you end up with a bunch of people saying, oh, well, if police are the problem, we got to completely eradicate the police, can't have them. Which then there's backlash that's like, no, we need the police. Police are the heroes. We got to have 100% police everywhere and everything. And it's just arguments on whether or not we should or shouldn't have police, when the real discussion should probably be, obviously we need some form of law enforcement. That I would hope that's obvious to everyone, that there needs to be some form of law enforcement. But the discussion shouldn't be on just completely throwing something out the window or not. That shouldn't be where the core of the argument lies. The core of the argument should be on, how can we make this better? People are seeing a problem with this, right? Are there any things we can do to, fix what's going wrong and find out where it's going wrong without completely blowing things out of proportion? But to do that, you have to be, here's the problem. To do that, you have to be honest first, right? Which is apparently very difficult. And second, you have to utilize the facts and the data that you have. If the facts don't line up with what you are saying, then you need to figure out why what you're saying doesn't agree with the facts. Not, oh, the facts must be wrong. Or try to justify them and twist them and bend them as far as possible without breaking them to make them fit what you're talking about. It could turn out that, because everyone's probably looking for a solution to the same problem. Or we're seeing an issue and we're seeing a complicated issue and we're thinking there's different reasons for the problem, right? If we see, problems between different groups of people, a lot of people might say race is the issue. Well, you got another group of people that are saying class is the issue, and there's different causations for things. So we're having trouble agreeing on what is the cause of things and what is the solution for these problems. And you're not going to fix those kind of issues by stirring up and causing violence. So with this Trump mobile caravan rally in Portland, one thing you need to consider and keep in mind, let's say you are a Trump supporter or maybe just someone who's on the right in general, because it's obvious we have seen a lot of violence from very far left-wing people, and I don't say all left-wing people because there are a lot of left-of-center people that completely hate what some of these people are doing too. There's this extreme movement on that side that a lot of people don't agree with. But if you see this, it's been pretty clear over the past few months that, they do tend to be violent and they do tend to be extreme in their views and call for a lot of things that are absolutely ridiculous. That's clear. But usually the people that have clashed with them and there have been issues with, for the most part, have been law enforcement and police over the past few months. But that can only go on so long, right? We now are having people who would consider themselves maybe Trump's base. And again, that's not far right, because again, they'll be labeled as far right and white supremacists, which isn't the case. I would call them more like Trump loyalists or super Trumpers or always Trumpers, whatever you want to call it. But they're very dedicated to Donald Trump. And again, that doesn't mean, I'm not saying whether or not in this situation he is good or bad or whatever. I think he's a bit of both. But the people that are hardcore loyal to him no matter what, that think he is the only way to stop people on the left, are now getting fed up to the point where they're now coming out. And what I wanted to talk about is this fine line that exists between how this group needs to behave when they go out. And if you're one of this group, or maybe you are a really big fan of Trump and you're going out, kind of how you need to behave yourself and be very careful, because you don't want to cross that line, because then you're going to make, and maybe even not your fault, but the media is going to take things and really bash you to the nth degree, because you're not on their side. So where I wanted to get at the point with this line is, it is perfectly fine to form a caravan, drive your vehicles through with your flags, saying what you want to happen and what you want people to do, whatever it may be. And if you are coming out like Kyle Rittenhouse and but you're of legal age, let's say, and you want to, defend a business with a weapon or defend a town, and you're there to just protect, that's still a good thing in and of itself. So let's say you're in the city of Portland here, and you and people in the community want to watch each other's backs, protect your businesses and homes. That is good. You need to go out there and do that, and you need to support each other in that. Where it starts to get to the point of crossing the line is if you are coming into these areas, and you can still come into these areas and help those people defend their things and ask them if they want help defending these things. That's fine. That's perfectly good. But where it starts to become a little more complicated is if you are coming to these areas with violent protesters and violent rioters, and you are not there to defend against them. You are there to engage with them. And there is a difference between that, because coming in and defending something is perfectly fine. You're not stirring anything up or causing anything. You're just preventing them from going too far. But if you're coming into an area and you're starting conflict, or you're pushing people so close that conflict's going to break out by what you're doing, and it's not with the intent to just protect, it's with the intent to even push back that direction, you really might feel justified in it, and it might feel good, and you may even be justified in it if you feel this is a mob that has overrun the area and is violent, extreme group that the police aren't going to deal with. I get that sentiment and I get that idea. But you are going to be lumped into this category, and it may work out or it may not work out well for you, because you're not actually there to defend something. You're there to start a fight, and it is definitely going to be used against you and say that you were there to start a civil war and incite violence so that Trump wins the election. So you got to be really careful there, and you got to make sure your motives are in the right place. If there's going to be good actors on both sides and bad actors on both sides, people that are coming to these things in good faith, are speaking up for their views, and are making sure people around them are safe. Those are the good people. Bad people are the ones who are going to go try to start something and stir something up. So just watch out and make sure that you are not one of those people, whatever side you may be on. But that is pretty much all I wanted to cover in these segments. I just wanted to go over how quickly people are reacting to things and not taking the time to think things through. You've heard the phrase, facts don't care about your feelings. I think I talked about that a little bit ago. People need to really, really stop emotionally reacting to some crazy thing that occurs right off the bat without taking a minute to see what's happening. You're not supposed to make life-altering decisions and huge, impactful decisions when you're in a very emotional state. You don't do that kind of thing. You don't go to the grocery store when you haven't eaten forever and you're starving. You're gonna make a bunch of bad decisions there and buy a bunch of stuff you don't want. You don't do that kind of thing. You wait till you're clear-headed and you can make an informed decision. That said, that is all we're going to cover now. I guarantee you there will be more violence breaking out later. This is probably going to happen all the way up to the election, even past it, depending on how that goes. I thank you guys for tuning in. I'll keep you posted and updated. We'll issue corrections and updates where needed on these stories. If you'd like to support the channel and help maybe get more videos out other than what we got right now. Right now we got about every other day. If you want maybe multiple videos every single day, you can support the channel with the link down this description at Buy Me a Coffee. And if not that, you can just leave a like and subscribe. That helps just as much. And if you don't like it, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to offend you. Sometimes that's life. But other than that, thank you guys for tuning in. We will see you in the next one. Y'all have a good one.